Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today's Sample Quality and Fraud Prevention Tech Showcase. We've got some really exciting content, but before I hand it on over to Lenny, I just want to remind you of a few things. First, we've got that chat box. You can drop your LinkedIn, let us know where you're tuning in from, and then we have that questions box. If you have any questions, make sure to drop them there, and we'll get to them at the end of the session. But with that, Lenny, I'll hand it on over to you.
Thank you, Bridget, and hi, everybody. Welcome to this edition of our Insights Tech Showcase on Sample Quality and Fraud Prevention 101. So I'm glad you said exciting, Bridget. Most people don't think that, but I think it is. And look, these slides are kind of dense, so you're going to get a copy of them. I'm not going to go through every bullet point, but I do want to add some kind of commentary on a few things. One, this is foundational to success of our industry, period. Garbage in, garbage out. That certainly is a truism, and it is absolutely true within the construct of market research. The ability for us to impact business decisions is only as good as the accuracy of the data that we collect, and the data that we collect depends upon good quality sample. And this has always been true, and it's always been a challenge for the 20 plus years I've been in the industry. Certainly, we have seen it accelerate in recent years because of the migration to online, and there's been this tension point between the speed and cost efficiencies, which have led the industry towards trying to find ways to do that at scale while maintaining anonymity of respondents, which is a core principle of market research. The trade-off of that has been when there is an opportunity for automation that has a monetary component attached to it. Think about within the advertising industry, the click fraud, for instance, is a multi-billion-dollar issue. And the approaches that we have taken as an industry to deal with the speed and cost demands have also been comparable to programmatic advertising in overall model. And that unfortunately has opened us up to challenges around fraud. So this is a big deal. It has implications financially, has implications on the quality of our outputs. It has implications on our staffing levels. It's there. And it's not just there within quantitative, it also is there within qualitative to an extent. And we are at an inflection point as an industry. And the companies that you're going to hear that present after me are companies that are coming with various solutions to deal with this. But deal with it, we must. There is no exception. There certainly may be business issues where the importance of the decision is not absolutely critical, and having some element of bad data in there is acceptable because it's not really going to impact the decision. Let's recognize that. My rule of thumb is the more tactical the decision is, the more tolerance there is for sample quality wiggle room. The more strategic it is, the less tolerance there is. And I think it's a workable framework that we really need to think about and lean into. And then there's one more concern now in the era of AI, right? Up to now, we've thought about projects, and there's been relatively siloed. And yes, there's applications to be able to integrate data, and we look longitudinally, et cetera, et cetera. But still, it's still been in a pond overall. Now, with the era of AI and with research results and potentially even our panels and sample acquisition helping to inform AI training sets, the contaminant of bad sample in that world has much broader implications. So it's not just necessarily one study that was not accurate. Those results, those data can be fed into a much larger system, and there is a thread of contamination that could run throughout that entire that entire knowledge base, that entire LLM. So it's more important that we deal with this now than ever before. So I'll get off my soapbox. Here's the issues around sample quality. I think I just spoke to them all, and let's dive into a little bit more relevant information. So our friends at CASE, which was a consortium of it's the Coalition for Advancing Sampling Excellence. It was a coalition formed primarily from the client side, folks, a few years ago. They did a large study, multiple studies actually, how big is the problem. And this is a slide from that. This was presented, I believe, at the Insights Association. You can go to the Insights Association, put in Case for Quality, or you can go to caseforquality.org. There's examples of this here. But here's what they found. So they did across multiple panel companies and looking at the disposition of completes. And they found that it was pretty significant when you look at folks who failed traps that were set into the study itself, kind of red herrings, flat out fraud, and dupes. When you combine all of this, it's roughly 30%. And I've heard that anecdotally for many years, that across many, not all, sample sources, that it is common to have to throw away up to 30% of your sample. Now, it used to be that you could kind of compensate for that by maybe oversampling and still get to your N. But there's also a restriction on supply overall at this point as well. It is harder to get people to participate in research, and particularly on the quantitative side, the survey side, because we are not incenting them very well. There's some companies that are changing that, and I encourage you to think about that. And there's certainly companies that are trying to, even within those constraints, a lot of the companies you're going to hear from today are developing solutions to strip out and identify all of these various elements that create bad sample within the existing ecosystem. But recognize that somewhere between around 30% of your sample is likely not good, depending upon the sample provider that you are working with. So again, this is done across multiple studies. Other studies like this have occurred over the years, over my career. We keep coming back to the same number. So this isn't some minor problem. We're not talking about 2 or 3%. It may be in particular issues of dupes, et cetera, but collectively, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So within the most recent GRIT report, the Insights Practice Report that just came out, shameless plug, download the GRIT report. We asked about that. We asked about issues around sample quality. Here are a couple quotes from respondents. There's an open end look at that first one, data quality. Every one of our research clients has been negatively affected by declining quality. That's a big deal. What are we doing about it? Improvements in fraud detection, online panels, the companies you're going to hear from today, find new solutions, new technologies, panels, maintain these things better. Lots of various issues. I'm not going to read all these out, but understand this is a multifaceted issue. It does have implications on lots of different components of the research process, and even on the brand. I will echo again, this is fundamental to our business. There's lots of reasons why we have to get this right that are outside of just our core of delivering accurate data to inform better business decisions. So we have to pay attention to this. This is one of those things we don't want to talk about, but we must. So I think we also asked, what do sample related problems, problems occurred more than once in a certain timeline. We're doing this by segment, where we think about buyers and suppliers. And look at some of these numbers. Fell short of planned sample size. You know, that's pretty significant. Had to address doubts about quality, which speaks right to the value of research. Didn't get the composition. Missed deadlines. Made poor business decision. Um, this has real implications for us, guys. And here's an example quantitatively across a very large sample of research buyers and suppliers. We asked that question, and the results were very concerning. So the bloom is off the rose. This has bottom line impact. So let me ask, what are they doing about it? And the arrow here is the growth of a particular option from 2022 to 2023 when these data were collected. Looking at alternative sample sources, that means not utilizing the existing panels that currently power most of the research industry. Applying more pressure to sample providers. That is certainly something that we know is happening. The companies that are presenting today are partnering with them to provide solutions, building their own panels, which is a significant investment. It is not a cheap and easy thing to build your own panel. Tools to automate data quality. You're going to hear of some of those today. Fraud detection services and processes. You're going to hear some of those today. But look at that top number, alternative sample sources. So, that speaks to innovation. That speaks to, despite the industry kind of navigating towards this programmatic river sample type of model to deal with scale, speed, and cost, it hasn't worked in all cases. It doesn't meet the need across the entire spectrum of business issues. And folks are looking at alternative ways to do that. And I would encourage everybody, if you're on the sample side of the business, to be thinking about ways that we rethink how you do that. What's the happy medium between having addressing speed and cost in new ways while also addressing issues around identity validation, ensuring that we have engaged respondents, ensuring that we have folks that are not dupes or are just speeding through, ensuring we're not getting bot farms, which that exists, et cetera, et cetera. Because if not, eventually our clients, and this is, by the way, clients, this is brand, this is buyers, they will be looking at solutions outside of the market research industry to address their sample needs. So back to Case, they came up with a series of questions for suppliers, and I think that they're really great, and have reprinted them here with permission. Thank you for all the hard work that the Case team has done. And so this is around capabilities, asking what fraud detection are there? What are you doing? So these are questions you need to ask your suppliers, whether you're on the buyer side or on the supplier side. Every study has sample. Ask these questions. What are you doing to prevent infiltration, contamination from bad sample? So are they looking at device participation? Do they have a dashboard so they can look at fraud? How does the service work? What capabilities are they utilizing? Are there issues with identifying duplication across mobile devices? Because there's certainly the balance between anonymity as well as kind of de-identification solutions that exist online, privacy components within any of the devices that we all use. There's a lot of challenges. And actually, I should stop there and make it clear. The issues around quality and fraud by no means should be construed that our sample providers are doing anything wrong. I reject that wholeheartedly. These are researchers. They understand the value. They understand the importance. They are doing good work to try and address the needs of the industry. 100%. Unfortunately, there are bad apples out there, right? And they take advantage of systems for their own selfish uh, purposes. They just do. And that is true for almost any system where there's an opportunity for monetization. And that does not mean that we do not incent respondents. So we must give a fair value exchange for asking people for their time, attention, and data. We just have to. So it's wrong to think that the solution is, oh, well, we just take away the monetary incentive and then we won't have fraud. Take away the monetary incentive, we won't have sample. So, um, so keep that in mind. These folks are doing the best they can. They're working with the types of companies that we're seeing here today to deliver solutions. But here's some of the questions that you should ask around capabilities. Here's something around the scope of service. Fundamentally, is it just a technology solution? Is it plug and play? Or do they provide more consulting? Is there a manual process that's involved as well as a fallback? Can they suggest ways to develop your questionnaires and your screeners to prevent fraud or to identify fraudsters as well? Certainly ask for referrals, ask for references. Those are all important. Can be done real time, or is it after the fact? All of these are important considerations in looking at what's the right solution for you based upon your project needs. And then, detection, the technical components, how do they detect these things? How do they detect speeders, fraudsters, bots, dupes? Ask them how they are doing this. And here's the thing to keep in mind. This is a story of, plugging a hole in the dike. And as soon as technology fixes one solution around fraud, the fraudsters are really smart and they figure out another way to get around it. So there is not a place where this will not always be a battle. This is something we are going to have to keep doing and keep working on as folks figure out new ways to game the system. We have to figure out new ways to stop them. So ask for examples of how that's happening. If your partner is utilizing technology that's probably 5 years old, it's addressed the issues of 5 years ago. It may not be fit for purpose now. I can speak from personal experience. I have seen AI systems be deployed to answer surveys, and they are really hard to detect overall. They look like real respondents. The giveaway actually was that the open ends were too good. So, right. And that's new. That was just in the last year that we've seen that start to happen. So just an example is technology accelerates, nefarious players find ways to utilize it to their advantage. We have to find ways to fight back against it. And we need to ask folks, what they're doing. So what does the future hold? And this is kind of the fun part, the behavioral verification. So one of the companies you're going to hear today is building a very large behavioral data set. Now that's hard to commit fraud on, right? When you are PIN and people are sharing their information via their device on web navigation, app usage, geolocation, that goes really far in confirming that that's a real person. So it's a huge step in going through that process. Then it's an issue of engagement. I would argue if you know that these are real people and you've got that data, there's two things that you can do. One, leverage that data not to ask a question you already have the answer to, and that includes screening. If you know somebody is a frequent shopper at a specific store and that's part of your screening criteria and it's in the behavioral data, don't ask the question. There's no need to. We have the answer. So we can get better at targeting, better at recruiting, better at bringing folks into the research process by leveraging other data sources that already have the answers to the questions that we are interested in. And secondly, if we know this information, we know they're a real person, and then it's an issue of engagement, we should consider increasing our incentives for those folks. So their time is valuable. So let's recognize that. So I think behavioral verification, we're going to see a heck of a lot more of that, of providers in the insights industry through a variety of mechanisms and relationships, expanding their behavioral data, which is appended to the profile information and the attitudinal data that we generally collect, and utilizing that as a tool to create much shorter, more effective, honest, and engaging surveys. AI analysis, right? AI is good at looking for patterns in data, and especially verbatims. So I think we'll see more and more solutions where AI is incorporated in. I think that as form factor of research shifts to video and voice, because of the speed of the analysis of unstructured data, that will go far as well in addressing one of these issues. So you'll validate the identity. You're talking to a real person because you're seeing them talk and they're answering your questions within the survey process or the research process overall. I shouldn't just say surveys. It's a real person, and AI is going to help do that. Identity validation, know your customer approaches exist in most other industries. They don't exist here because we have focused more on anonymity. We've tried to replicate the glory days of random digit dialing in commercial market research in the modern era. The reality is that that type of rigor from a sampling standpoint is absolutely needed in specific use cases, let's say polling, social research, et cetera, et cetera. But for most commercial research, it's a convenience sample. And if it's a convenience sample, then and people are engaged with a panel, then I would encourage every panel company out there to look at utilizing identity validation technologies. I spoke to a company earlier today, before this is being recorded, that is one of the largest identity KYC providers in the world. They're interested in our industry. They see the need. I would say that we should do that as well. We need to find ways to validate identity while still protecting anonymity, and we can do that. And new sample sources. Look, Rakuten. Rakuten is the Amazon of Japan. They have a panel. Walmart just announced an expansion of their research services through Walmart Luminate, which effectively turns all of their customers into a panel. Yahoo recently announced, recruiting all of Yahoo users into a panel. Amazon does it, LinkedIn does it, Facebook does it. They have first-party direct data, often with validated identity. And those companies are certainly moving more and more into this space because they know that there is a need for them. In many cases, they're leveraging that on behalf of their existing clients, their advertising clients. But in some cases, again, like Rakuten, they're making that available to the industry as a whole. So for the existing panel companies are going to have to step up their game because there are other solutions that are entering the market. Now, here's the flip side of that. Right, not all of these solutions are going to be appropriate for all of your research needs. They're not going to cover have the coverage from the respondent level, et cetera, et cetera. Point of all this is there's lots of new stuff happening, right? We have the companies that we're hearing today that are pioneering, developing new solutions. We have other solutions that are going to be emerging over the next few years that are going to help solve this problem. And as an industry, we need to support those efforts. It's not free or even cheap to develop these solutions. There's going to be cost implications. There just are. So we need to factor that in. Personally, I think that we're going to see an increase in sample costs, while a decrease in many cases of data collection costs because of efficiencies gained with AI. The net result of that may be that project costs don't come down much. And let's embrace that, right? I'm all for speed and cost efficiencies wherever we can get there. But let's recognize that in some cases, maybe we've made the wrong trade-offs. Maybe the balance has been off. And companies that are helping to solve the critical bedrock foundational issue of sample quality. There's going to be cost implications for that. We need to get used to paying more for sample and then find other ways to decrease costs from a process standpoint overall. So that's it for today. Hope that's helpful. Hope you guys enjoyed my soapbox as much as I enjoyed giving it. Pay attention to the companies that are coming after us. They are great. They are developing great solutions that are aligned to everything we just talked about, and they deserve your support. That's it. Thanks. Bye-bye.